All right, welcome everybody. This is Barney Kunze coming to you live from Ontario, Canada, and we are connecting two countries officially today, the UK and Canada, from across the pond, as some of my friends say, from Europe or over in that area. And we have Peter Jeffs on with us today, and he's one of our new newest presenters, I should say, to the Animal Wellness Summit. And we are going to be talking a lot about some very interesting things. And Peter is a new presenter, as I've already mentioned. So he's his first year with us at the Animal Wellness Summit was this year in 2018. And he was referred by Petra Christensen, who is from Colorado, but she's moving to Arizona. She found her dream property there. And so Peter actually has so much great information to share that he is actually, we asked him to be included, and he wondered if it was okay if he could present again next year. And I said, yes, I guess that's okay. So Peter, I'm going to bring him on, or bring him on. I'm going to bring you on, Peter, and welcome. So this is great for context and also for, I just thought of something funny. We have Barney, the Canadian who has no hair, and we have Peter, the, you say British, right? Britain?
Yeah, originally
That
from
has lots
Scotland.
of hair.
Yeah, that's right.
That's awesome. So for everybody who's new and they didn't maybe get a chance to watch you or learn from you in the summit, I know that some of you watching are VIP members and some of you are new to the Animal Wellness Summit, and some of you are like wondering what this whole thing is all about, which you're going to learn as we go. But I'd love for you to, Peter, just to give us a quick little overview of who you are and what work you do, and then we're going to get into some of your questions and some of the things that you wanted to share that you mentioned before we got on the call today.
Great. Okay. Well, so lovely to be here. Good evening, good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are in the world. And yeah, so I am a kinesiologist. My speciality is in working with horses. Originally, I was trained in the life sciences, studying botany at Durham, and then I studied genetics and evolution in Cambridge in the UK for my PhD. And then after some years of research, I moved off into other things. Really, in my story, one of the things that is very, I think, a kind of key thing was that I was always, even as a graduate student, looking for a kind of holistic vision of things. And it wasn't too easy for me to find in a very molecular biology sort of, DNA clone and sequence sort of world. It was quite strange. And so it's interesting for me in my own life story that I've come back some years later to discover kinesiology, and to discover all the kind of holistics that I kind of knew were out there as a graduate student, but I had no way of accessing them. So when I started working with kinesiology, it was a revelation to me. And between the modalities of Reiki, I'm a Reiki master and Reiki practitioner, and the kinesiology, my work is very much focused on this holistic balance. So shall I just very briefly, explain, the sort of the central, the essence of kinesiology very, very quickly?
Yes, I think that would be great because I'm familiar with it.
Yeah.
My own studies in holistic health and working with humans, but I think that sometimes there's going to be definitely going to be people out there that are like, okay, well, I'm familiar with kinesiology, but that'd be great.
So, I mean, many people know kinesiology through sport applications, but the systematic kinesiology that we and that I'm trained in uses the art of muscle testing to explore a relationship in the body between the meridians, organs, and muscles. So, what this is very amazing that an organ like the stomach can is linked to a muscle, One muscle, for example, we call the PMC, the pectoralis major clavicular. So it's a shoulder muscle. And this is also linked to the stomach meridian, which has its endpoint here just below the orbit of the eye, and then runs down to the second toe. So it's this sort of relationship. And what we find is that when someone is out of balance, there are, there can be either structural, nutritional, emotional, or energetic influences which affect the functioning of either the organ or the meridian. And these can be detected through the tonicity of the muscle. So, I mean, if I just sort of pull back a little bit here, so I can, I'll see if I can show you this. Great. Okay. So, for example, here I'm holding my arm out, and in the case of, testing this muscle, the PMC, the kinesiologist will just apply a light pressure and move down in a 45-degree angle on that extended arm. Now that's what we call classically a muscle test. And what is interesting is that our emotional state, our nutritional state, can switch that muscle off. Normally, in a case of a balanced person, for that circuit, the stomach circuit, that muscle will simply fire when we ask the client to meet our pressure, very gentle pressure. But in the case of a real stomach imbalance, people find that they just can't raise that pressure. And so this is this sort of the art of muscle testing. It's for the kinesiologist to approach the body, ask the body what's going on. So it's not a question of someone saying, oh, I've got a stomach issue, though that might take them to the kinesiologist. It's a question of the body actually showing that there's a lack of balance in that circuit. And what the kinesiologist will do, working with what we call the four realms, structure, nutrition, emotion, and energy, is to find out through a process of testing what will strengthen that muscle that has been switched off. Now that's the principle. All our organs, our meridians, are linked to different muscles. So in the systematic kinesiology, in which I'm trained, there are 40 muscles which we use approximately. And in this way, the kinesiologist has a very, very large range of techniques to be able to question the body. And this is really important because, sometimes, somebody has literally physically can't move one muscle. So if you have if you've only got one muscle to test, then, that person really is excluded from the kinesiological process. But when you're working with 40 muscles, you can test leg muscles, shoulder muscles, back muscles, leg muscles, arm muscles. So we have that real capacity to interrogate at a very, very subtle level the different circuits of the body. Now that's kinesiology as practiced on humans. My interest began through a case study which I was able to do through with a friend's horse, and that just completely turned my attention to the joys of being able to do kinesiology with these beautiful animals. And so really since that single case study, I just kind of knew even before I'd finished my diploma that that's where I wanted to be. And that brought me to doing the work that I do today, which is to say really to develop a kinesiological approach to wellness in horses. And that has completely superseded my activity with human beings. So it's a beautiful process. And what can I say? That the kinesiological approach, we tend to use what's called a surrogate, which is to say someone who stands in for the horse. And so we do our muscle testing with that surrogate, that person. the way we work with our animals is to then connect the person with the animal. And that physical connection, usually by putting their hand on the animal's body, connects them and enables us then to do the same kind of kinesiology. The person is surrogating for the horse, and their energy system is modified by what's going on with their horse. So, having prepared someone, tested someone, balanced them for a variety of different organs and systems, by connecting them to their horse, we can ask, how is their horse doing? And that's really the way that I proceed.
If I jump in for a quick second, that's pretty.
Sure.
That's pretty cool. And so because I was going to ask you, I was going to say that, and I'm going to ask the question from the standpoint that I'll pretend like I don't know what I do about kinesiology and muscle testing, and the work that you do. But let's say that there's an issue with somebody's horse, or this can be done. Maybe you haven't done it, but technically, can it be done on cats and or dogs or any type of animal?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay,
it's much easier to work with smaller animals because you can work indoors. You can work. The animal can be sitting literally on the surrogate, which is a nice thing to be able to do.
Right. So so then when you go to do the work, the work that you're doing right now, you're working with a herd of horses. You're kind of like, it's a longer term project. But if somebody wanted to apply this in their, like if they wanted to obviously learn, there's a little bit more education they're going to need. But essentially, are you going in and determining from your experience what tests or what how can I say this? Well, tests you're going to do, and using your intuition and picking up based on what you're hearing, or kind of both, or?
Yeah, there are two contexts. One, something could come up. For example, the horse's owner could say, I have noticed that, and could we look at that? In which case we can do kinesiology. For example, I could work with her directly, and we could look at a specific issue. As I'm working regularly with these horses, a lot of my work is done through noticing what goes on. And to give you an example, I noticed that one of the herd members was developing something of a crest. So that's it's a fatty band of tissue under at the level of the mane. So when the horse is turning, you can see this sort of fat, and you'll see it that it builds up. A horse should not have a crest development, and it's a precursor to laminitis. So it's something that people really, obviously want to watch for. I was looking at one of the horses and thinking, whoa, there is something going on here. Normally there aren't crest issues with this particular animal. So I wondered, well, what's going on with the sugar balance? I noticed as well that this horse was always looking on the other side of the fence for extra grass with respect to the rest of the herd. So there are 5 large horses, 5 small ponies, and so it was obvious that he was seeking something, And my intuition was right. Okay, let's check for sugar balance. And in that case, I mean, I was absolutely spot on. There were sugar balance issues, and that is determined through a kinesiological test. I check myself for sugar balance, and then I connect myself to the horse, and I see whether or not my muscles, which I'm then testing on myself, change in their tonus. And in fact, it turned out that, yeah, that basically this horse could switch off my muscles when I locked in the sugar balance issue. And so we began a program of, I mean, what is basically EFT tapping, working with the spleen meridian and the kidney meridian. And so that's a way in which, you know, it's you know, when I talk about wellness, I mean, it's preventative. It's noticing what's going on and being able to see that, you know, just through his behavior, and then think, okay, let's look at that, check the energy circuits, and then do the balancing, was definitely the way to go. And so I was doing that correction with him, that balancing, for a period of about 3 weeks. And I would just spend time with him each time I was there, tapping on the end point of his kidney meridian, and then holding that, and then tapping the spleen meridian. And I would do that on both sides, both kidney meridians, both end points of the spleen meridian, in order to help him balance blood chemistry and to balance the sugars. And it's really interesting to see how that behavior gradually declined. And then when I retested him to make sure that the balancing is holding, I mean, I discover that his sugar balance is now good, and there is no crest development. So he is he's in good form, and it's really beautiful to see that. That's very much the way I tend to work. That's why I like to work with a herd that I know, and where I'm part of the herd as sort of human herd member, so that I can see what's coming on.
Yeah, that's pretty good, because I know that you said that it's just the work. It can be, it's not just like a, here it is, and then here's how you figure it out. Like it requires and kind of takes some time. Now, I just actually put up Barb's comment there, saying, so wish you could come to CA. I think she's referring to California. But maybe, I don't know, I should ask you this. Do you travel to do this type of work, or are you really just like you're where you are now and you're gonna?
At the moment, I'm where I am now, but it's clear that in the years to come, I would like to be able to travel, do workshops. I think that the first occasion may well be with you next year in May.
That's right.
So I think that will be in Ontario.
Yes. Yeah.
And
I was just, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was just going to say, in case you guys are wondering what Peter's talking about, we alluded to this in the summit, that in the last 2 years, we had people asking, like, this is great, this is awesome, love the content, or I got so much for free and I'm so excited to be a VIP now, or I got so much for free, this is awesome. But we are actually planning a live event, and I can just tell you that I went to and I found a venue, and we last year in 2017 we had people ask, they're like, would you guys ever consider doing a live event? And I'm like, well, I don't know. Like I started my early career in fitness and health and training, training people at a local church and doing speaking engagements, and so I don't have the expertise like Peter does, but I can help to organize things. And I met somebody, Dr. Susan Beal, who is the president of the HVMA, the Holistic Veterinary Medical Association, and her and I are working on something. But what I can tell you right now is that it is actually happening, and we'll send out more details. And then Peter, I said to Peter, this would be great because then you can come over to Canada. Canada's pretty cool, and even all of our American friends, you guys can come north of the border. You just have to get your passport. But anyway, so without getting sidetracked, on a side note, I will send out an email So if you're watching this and you're not in our email list, then you're going to want to make sure you get joined up. But we are going to have a lot of that. And the last thing I'll say is the venue that we looked at is a pet-friendly venue. So you can bring your dogs. I don't know that it's going to make sense to bring horses along, but not in this.
I think we'll have a few.
Yeah, well, maybe we probably will. But we'll
have to manifest some horses
in the rooms. I don't know if it makes sense to bring your horse.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, but in pet friendly in that regard, and even in the space, because we're going to be doing some hands-on like training. So what you're talking about, like doing the muscle testing and doing and actually showing, because it's the one thing to talk about it, but it's a very obvious kinesthetic based experience, right?
Definitely.
So, Barb, if Trump doesn't let you come up here, we will let you come up. I always say that jokingly. We're trying to keep the borders closed. I always say that to my American friends jokingly, but yes. So, but got a little carried away with that. But so saying yes, nobody does this. This is Barb. Did get a kit to test with this herbs. Maybe I missed something that she said. Oh, she was saying earlier we have a sugar issue, and did get a kit to test with herbs. So I'm going to ask, because I feel like Barb's probably going to ask this question or thinking about it. If somebody's watching this and they're like, well, this is really cool, but I have no idea where to start. Do you do can somebody call you and do a consult, or do you do that for people to help them if you can't physically be there, to give them some guidance and instruction?
Oh yeah, no, I mean, if you email me and we can talk about, what's going on, and obviously if you've got an equine kinesiologist in your area, then I would say that is the person to consult. But there's a lot that that one can do, just talking about the looking at the situation, looking at the conditions which your animal is living in, and there's some good sense stuff, and we can just explore what's possible. Definitely. So, I do encourage, if somebody does have a question, they'd like to talk about something in more depth, email me, and I'll be very, very happy to exchange. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. That's awesome. Okay, and I didn't mean to cut you off there before, but I think we kind of you were saying a little bit about the travel and doing the live part, because I know that there just comes a point where, as we go through a lot of this, the dog behavior training or other things to do with the animals, it's you can watch the videos, read the books, and do all that, but it's the hands-on stuff, I think, that can, once you really learn it's going to serve you very well. So, but yeah, so where else were you going with that? I think you kind of covered the basics of it, and did I finish off a point there?
That gives an idea of the basic approach. One of the things that I am aware of is the time that this kind of work takes. It is little and often. While you can, obviously, if you have you have, for example, a mineral deficiency which is extremely acute, it's clear that kinesiology will be able to will help you to determine that, and you will be able to rapidly balance your horse, with, let's say, supplements, things like that. So that could be very rapid. But what I'm finding with, particularly with emotional things, is that it really takes time. It's very, very, it's little and often, very, very gentle, and something that I think is a cornerstone of my own approach, is to be able to be in places where I have that time, and we can do things slowly. So if may I allude to the question that was asked in the last live that we did when we were talking about that Mustang?
Yeah, maybe Just restate the question because it was really good. We did
Yeah.
during the live, and this is really good. So yeah,
one participant asked who has a Mustang that has clearly been abused and saved from certain death. And she was asking, what would the kinesiologist do in that sort of situation? How could a kinesiologist help? And one of the things that I mentioned was, finding out where that trauma or part of that trauma is held in the body. Trauma is held in our meridians, can be held in very specific circuits. And I was thinking about that. It was great that question was asked, and it's in the way in which things are synchronous. I was thinking about that, and actually working with one of the horses in the herd here in Somerset, and this concerns behavior of nodding. So this horse, beautiful horses, will very often go into this kind of nodding, very sort of strong, repeated nodding behavior. And this is something that is, it's very, very marked. He's the only horse in the herd who will exhibit this behavior. And I've often wondered, what messages, what things that he's communicating with this. And it was after that Mustang reflection that I was just standing close to him one day a few weeks ago, and I remember just touching his kidney meridian endpoint. So that's at the we call the K27. It's a point. It's medial. It's pectoral. So, for example, in the human, it's a clavicular point. It's the K27. The end point of the kidney meridian is up here on us, and so it's in the front. It's really up. On the close to the pectoral muscle, on the clavicle, on the horse's clavicle. And what was amazing was that just by touching this point, this horse would begin, he would release this very, 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 determined nodding behavior, but only on one side. And that I just found fabulous, that touching that point on one side, and the nodding would begin, touch the point on the other side, nothing. And when I say touch, I mean, this isn't, like pushing in, it's not prodding. I mean, this is literally just tapping so gently, it's like a fly touch on that point. And so I realized very quickly, and I checked this over and over again, that part of that nodding process is being released through the kidney meridian. And and I've been working there for with these horses for like 10 months, and this is something that is very it's very, very, very slow, because I know that this horse is not ready to let go of that at the moment. I mean, that's clear. He's not ready, but he's getting ready. And I could feel that when we started working with that particular point. And I felt he's saying, yeah, okay, now, I'm ready now. We can begin to release this. I'm actually beginning to feel ready to release this. I feel in safety to release this. And that's where I am. It's very, very slow. And, these regular moments, but I can feel there's something really, really shifting. And so I thought a lot about that Mustang, and it just seemed like a really good example of where a behavior pattern is locked into a meridian. And then it's just the time and the release, and the time and the release, and the love that we have for our animals as they begin to release those kind of things. So, you know, I look forward to seeing where George is going to be in, you know, in a year's time. I mean, but this, you know, it'll take the time it takes. But it's a beautiful process. And again, that gives a good example of the kind of work that I'm trying to do here.
Yeah, that's pretty pretty neat. In addition to, I mean, I guess really it's thinking more about the fact that it's not like you go necessarily get a treatment or an adjustment and then it's just done. It takes time to do this, which is why it's a longer term project for you. And I'm just thinking where for those that are watching, you're just thinking, okay, well, I'm thinking about you guys watching and thinking, listening to Peter and thinking, okay, how can you integrate what you're learning into your lives? Because I mean, Barb was commenting here. And I think, I don't know, Barb, if you're still on, let us know. But maybe she says, yes, I have the natural trace minerals from Nevada mines. They work on the new Mustang. So I wasn't sure if maybe she is the same lady who commented on your last call about the Mustang or not. But I'm thinking that you were giving reference to the Mustang, but then George is the horse that's in her that you're working on now, right?
Yeah. So I was just thinking about that question of where something is stored.
Right.
You know, and we talked a little bit, I mean, in my video on the Wellness Summit, I mean, we talked about injury recall and the fact that the cervical vertebrae are like a kind of black box for everything above the shoulder. Right. So what I was able to demonstrate with Nicola, who is the owner of the horses, is you know, how we could, you know, do that above shoulder release. That was George in the film. And, you know, that's a place, again, where, you know, like humans, we store all this stuff up here.
Right.
And, you know, so the releasing process, I mean, you know, is profound. Now, if you go back to the origins of Reiki with Mikao Uzui, so right back to the 20s in Japan, the Reiki that he was doing would take time. You know, we certainly, the way that I've seen Reiki practiced is that often people will have short sessions, you know, 1 session, 2 sessions, 3, 4, maybe, you know, and that's pretty much, you know, and that's sort of often the way it's practiced. But, you know, Madame Takato was one of the, you know, who brought the Reiki system to the US many years ago. She was worked on for a very long time. And you know, in that system, I mean, people would work for months. They would work for months. And I think it's very interesting that, you know, that this is taking me back to a sort of a slower process. You know, obviously things that you can do through, you know, chiropractic where you're really, you know, doing something very rapid, but there is also this part of very slow medicine. And I think that's sort of, you know, I feel this is very consistent with the Reiki, this long-term slow process. That's something that's really struck me.
Yeah, and the reason I wanted to mention that, Peter, was because with me being at the I'll say young or old age of 35, have had a sufficient life experience in my gym, but also as a father, as a husband, just in general. And I've been consider myself a fairly you know, consciously awake or observant person, and tuned in, like really paying attention to my intuition, so to speak. But I also get caught up and have noticed the pattern of getting caught up in our modern industrialized world and fast-paced and technology and social media. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because it doesn't have anything to do with directly what you're talking about, but making the connection of the instant gratification that I think that we have maybe as Canadians or Americans but just as a society or as a global family, we could say that I, I do feel that there's a lot of this, like, you're going to take the pill to solve the issue, or, take an oil to try and, address an issue, an essential oil, which I love and use them all the time. But, with exercise, they go to the gym and people want to just do some workouts and change their bodies. And when they go to a kinesiologist and have a treatment done and just have it changed, or get a Reiki session, a chiropractic adjustment. But it's not just that. I guess what I'm saying to make the connection and bring it around is that it's looking at it in two contexts. There's the short-term forms of treatment and then the longer-term forms of treatment. And that when we look at how nature works and the animal kingdom works, and or our bodies, is that there's the repetition and time, and that there's the layers of learning, and it takes time. And so I think that as I'm saying this to you, I hope that this is making the connection, that it's really bridging the gap of having a really great respect of knowing that in advance, so that as everybody listening to what it is that you're sharing can take that and know that as we move forward with, like, okay, how can I integrate this into my life, or in with my animals, or in with my pets, and with my training, and with my therapy, whatever. Does that kind of make sense with what you're sharing and how you're looking at the work that you do?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that, I was able, I lived in France for many years, and I was able to study Qigong. And the work that we did,
I love it.
At that level, was just fantastic. I went in very much as a complete beginner, and I wasn't at that time, I hadn't studied kinesiology, I wasn't very familiar with the meridian system. But what I really understood was that they had systems of exercise. There are systems of exercise. I studied Daoyin Qigong, for each meridian system, for specific organs. And so the movements and the auto massage that we give ourselves is very, very, is destined to, to stimulating on a daily basis those circuits for health and well-being. And that is a daily practice. So no matter how, accomplished you are as a sort of Qigong student, just the fact of stimulating these, your meridians, and, this kind of thing, when you begin and just this, tapping the body like this, this is just fantastic. So when you're doing that, you imagine bringing that to, to your animals. And, in that sense, what I'm one of the things that I'm in the process of doing is really putting together a kind of what I hope will be a helpful package to show people things they can do without specialized, without becoming a kinesiologist, but using the benefits of these systems for working with, specific kinds of simple massage of this, this kind of tapping, stimulating points, things that people can really easily integrate in the daily life with their horse. That's sort of that is part of my vision. It's really simple stuff. It's practical stuff. Donna Eden has done that for the human body in her energy medicine book, and all the videos she shares. Donna Eden, I really recommend, if anybody's not heard of Donna Eden and her energy medicine, that is definitely a book to have on the bookshelf and to get off the bookshelf and read, because there's some fantastic stuff in there. Really fantastic. And I think that, bringing this kind of thing, it's to do with, it's to do with relationship. And it's lovely. It's so lovely because it's so physical. When you're grooming, and then, you can groom, and you're grooming with meridian points. So you're kind of giving your horse a little bit more in that direction, which is beautiful. When your horse is just completely there, and you're completely there, and you're doing that. That is just such a lovely moment of wellness, which is shared. And I think that's something which really, really strikes me, and I just love it so much.
Yeah.
So, there's, you can be worried about, you can be focusing on a specific issue, but at the same time, that wellness is an incredibly important word,
Yeah.
as
Well,
you know.
yes. Well, that's why we chose that,
Exactly.
for the animal wellness. It reminded me of something that I think this is just a great saying, not only for animals but for ourselves as human beings, that if we don't, it's a quote, and I forget who said it, but if we don't make time for health, we inevitably will make time for sickness. And so when I look at the wellness side of things, part of wellness actually is I was subscribed to the school of positive thinking and tried to be polarize myself all the time of being positive and always being healthy and never getting sick. But when you look in nature and in how our physiology, how it works, where there's cells constantly birthing and dying, and there's this, positive and negatives that are like both sides of the coin, so to speak. And so injuries and issues, as you've been referring to a couple times, they all serve, and that even to some degree, illness and diseases to a degree serve to bring our awareness back to where we're out of balance. And I know that sometimes that's not necessarily always a welcome perspective, but 15 years as a holistic health practitioner, I've always found that as the middle road, so to speak, to say, okay, well, how is being overweight, deconditioned, out of shape serving you right now? And they're like, what do you mean? Like, it doesn't. I feel like crap. They go on this whole gamut, and you're like, okay, now you know what you don't want to experience. Now let's go on the other side. And I say that to flip the coin, because what you just said was so amazing, because having that connection by doing something so simple, as you said, by stimulating the meridians in the body. I've had clients even before that I'd say Tai Chi or Qigong, and they're like, oh, like that sounds voodoo, or it's out there, it's not a good practice. And I'm like, well, have you studied it? Have you done it yourself? When you take it and just simplify it and bring it into your own life as a practice, it's really amazing and can be quite life-changing. And I just find it so unique that you apply that to your kinesiology work. And as all of you guys listening and watching live, I want to encourage you to think, okay, how can you apply what it is that you're learning? Because I'm learning a lot just listening to you talk, Peter. And this Deanna said, I want to pull this up for a second, saying, I also feel it's critical to set an intention and allowing it to manifest versus wanting a quick fix. And for sure. And I think that there's, in that scenario or comment, which is phenomenal, there's the two sides of, like, somebody sitting there and setting the intention and getting really clear, and they're just going to wait and pray and hope that things are just going to manifest and things are going to change, and then not take any action. And then there's the person who is out there just taking all the action, and they're doing all the things, and they're doing all the adjustments and doing all the treatments, but there's not a clear intention. And I don't think either really delivers a desired outcome. And so I think it's cool hearing what you're sharing.
I think that also, because the meridians are so central to this work, and we can stimulate them so simply by a very light touch. It brings us into proximity with our animal, and and that itself, just you're sharing your animal's energy field, and it's a real honor. And to obviously, and I mean, I have the highest respect for the veterinary surgeon. There are moments when people have to come in to do very specific things, and they have to move fast, and and that is, it's just fantastic. What a vet can bring, and can do. The other side of it, is that we can also do a lot in that sort of slow approach. And a lot of it is about the sort of the relational and the time and the gentleness of it. And I think that's something, that I really, I can feel in the qigong, studying that, and it just sort of amazes me with the kinesiology that we just have this fantastic way of communicating between bodies. One of the most amazing things, is working on a sugar balance issue with another horse, and having balanced the horse's companion, so we could see that there was no sugar balance issue in her energy system. We connected, after some work, we connected to her horse, and we could see that switched her muscles off. So we could do balancing again with these meridians, kidney and spleen. We were looking at other things, and we're looking at the stomach meridian, and it was really, really amazing. On the meridians, we have these activation and sedation points. And we use the sedation points to switch muscles off when we're checking that the muscle is switching on and off correctly. So on the human, the second toe, top of the second toe is the point, the sedation point for the stomach meridian. And so if we go back to this famous sort of this arm muscle, that you can test this. If you tap that point on the second toe, the muscle on somebody who's balanced will just switch off like that. It is so amazing. And what we were doing was basically doing the same thing. I was testing the horse's companion, and her stomach stomach system was just absolutely fine. And so at one point she connected to her horse. I tested her horse's stomach balance, perfect. I then went down and touched the end point of the stomach meridian on the horse's rear leg, and then retested her. So I touched the sedation point on her horse, and that switched her arm muscle off. And I mean, that was just so beautiful. It's so amazing the way the energy system connects. I mean, that for me was one of the, is just such a beautiful thing to see. It was so clear, and you could see that her body was just, she was so in tune with her horse. Her muscles are just switching off when we switched off stimulated the sedation point on the horse's stomach meridian. And that's something. There's a real message in that. It's like we are really connected with our animals, when we connect with them. And that for me, I mean, that is, just one of the huge miracles of this kind of thing. I just think it's fantastic. So we can do a lot, with this gentle approach. It's very powerful, very subtle.
I agree, and I think it's also great that you mentioned that too, because we, with being having a holistic focus and approach with animal wellness, I don't. There has been sometimes people have kind of shared an anti-vet or anti-traditional allopathic approach in animals and humans, and I believe that there's a strongly, with my mom was a registered nurse for 40 years, and I believe that it serves. If there's an injury, an acute injury on the farm or at home, you got to take them to the vet. You got to do that. And the same thing with the doctor. And I wouldn't necessarily make a direct reference to this, but like something like where people would say, oh, well, if you don't take any medications, you can just use all essential oils and it'll kind of solve everything. Well, I think that there is a purpose to a degree of both sides of a holistic and an allopathic or homeopathic and an allopathic approach. It's just one can tend to be used more often than it maybe necessarily should be. And I just think that's great with, as you're sharing, kind of like in golf, the long game, and in the short game, that's where there's the other forms of treatment that can help.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's really important to know that, the kinesiologists, as indeed Reiki practitioners, through the schools where I have been taught, and I believe in all good schools, we do not prescribe. We do not diagnose. We work to balance. The first lesson that we learn in our training is that if there is any medical issue which has come up, the first thing to do is is to contact your GP, or in the case of an animal, to contact your vet. And that is the absolute baseline. It's how I've been trained, and I stand by that. So, the work that I do, is complementary. And I have the permission of the veterinary medicine. I have the veterinary surgeon for the horses. He knows what I do. This is the way that we practice in this country and in the UK. That any kind of complementary work is done with the vet's knowledge and permission. So we're all clear on that. And it's a collaboration. And it's lovely. I've been very lucky to see, I've had moments, in the vet, and indeed the farrier have been amazed at some of the things that have been going on with her, because we're doing our stuff. We're doing the stuff. We're doing, and we're doing the slow stuff, but we're there, and they're there too. But we're working together for the same end. And that's, for me,
team.
Working
together as a team.
We're working together as a team. Absolutely. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, cool.
And that's for me, that's the base, that's where we are. And I feel very comfortable there. And and it's great to be able to share, with the vet and with the farrier, who are doing their work. We're part of a team.
Yeah.
We're a horses team.
Yeah. That's right.
Great place to be.
Okay, so we have a couple minutes left. I want to make sure I put up your websites, because you have 2 websites that I want to share with everybody. But there was a question that I had missed. That Catherine had sent in, and I just have to give it a second to publish on my end so I can share it. Right here. I'm going to put it up for a second, and I'm going to put you on the screen and let you comment on it to see what your thoughts are on that. While you do that, I just need to grab some water. I forgot my water, and I'm speaking about being dehydrated, I need to grab myself some water.
What I would say is, what I would want to do is really look at the psoas muscle and the water balance system kidneys. That's what I would look at in the first instance. This may have provoked some kind of, it could be some kind of structural issue. Horses are like humans. We're 65-70% water, and we need a lot of water to be able to function correctly. So that dehydration issue may have had other effects. I would want to first look at the kidneys, kidney meridian, how the kidneys are functioning, look at the hydration. These are things that are easily testable. So that, a kinesiologist, would be able to help you with that. What we want to do first of all is to look at all your horse's circuits and see if they're balanced. And see actually what has been pushed out of balance by that dehydration issue. I go to the kidneys straight away because that is absolutely crucial. And that's where I would begin. But I would do a full balance, what we call a wheel balance, looking at all the meridians, all the energy circuits, and see actually where the imbalance it currently is. So yes, kinesiology definitely could help your horse. And if you'd like to write to me and we can exchange about this, then I'm very, very happy to reply to you. That would be,
yeah, that'd be great. That's great. I don't know that Catherine is on. She emailed in, one of the members that emailed in a question, and I I don't know that she was able to be on here live, but so that's great. Now your email, I guess, because you had said that, so let's share that. Is it easier if we put your website up here and they can just, if there's a contact page?
Yeah. There's on the Equine page there is my Gmail address.
So I have Peter Jeff's.
So it's the WordPress site.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The Peter Jeff's Kinesiology.wordpress.com. Is that the one?
That's good.
Okay.
Yeah, and they can find me and they can contact me through there. It's a contact page. There's my Gmail address.
Okay, perfect. All right, so let's put that up here for you guys that want to reach out to Peter. As you can see, he's pretty cool and knows a lot. And I am going to share his website so that if you want to contact him, have questions, or if you're interested. So I think, like Catherine, you know, the challenge then becomes, and I'll put up your site right here. So it's just peterjeffskinesiology.wordpress.com.
Yeah, and there's an equine page there, and there's a contact page, and please get in touch.
Okay, perfect. Is that Catherine might be, you know, let's say from California, and you're in the UK, but if you can give her some guidance and direction, then she can try to find somebody locally. Now, do you know, I know that Dr. Erin O'Connor, she's the first one that comes to mind. She's a phenomenal animal chiropractor in Naperville, Illinois. And she shared a website where there's kind of like a directory of chiropractors. So is there something like that for the kinesiologists and practitioners that are of the same type of work that you do?
It's 14 hours.
That people could search, or do you not? Are you
I mean, the answer is I'm preparing this.
What's that?
I'm preparing this. I mean, that's one of the things that I'm going to do, because it's not, to my knowledge, not available. And I'd like to see that database put together.
Well, I think I have a feeling that other people would too.
Yeah.
That's great. Now let's as we wrap up here, this has been awesome, learning about going slow and remembering that a quote, again, I use this quote, is that you can't force the rosebud to open. It's got to kind of let it go on its own. But you tell us about the book that you've just written, because I think it's pretty cool. You're also an author, which I don't think we shared. And I put up a link here. So tell us about the book, because I think this is pretty unique, and you have another one.
Yeah.
So tell us why you wrote what it is.
Right. Well, I mean, I've been running a healing circle for meditation and Reiki healing for some time, and you know, before I started to really practice in the healing arts, I was working as a designer and illustrator, and I continue to make art. I always have done, part of my life, and I felt that this is a time when there's a lot to say to our kids. I have 2 kids. I mean, they're grown up now, but we read a lot of good stories together, and I've always loved kids' books. And the way it's just come out is that part of my art practice has actually gone into making books for children on a healing theme. And this is why the books are distributed through the Horse Healing Circle. It's all tied up with the animals. My first book was about salmon, and very much I'm inspired by the native wisdom. The salmon is a very wise fish, and about looking after the rivers. The books, they're really the adventures of a child and the child's grandfather who lives in a forest. And I write and draw these things myself. And I was inspired last year, the full moon in Taurus, to really sit down and write this first book, The Salmon's Tale. And this year, the full moon in Taurus, I got out my crayons, and I've written The Voyage of Dreams, which is a book, again, inspired by animals and animal messages. This one takes place in the Antarctic. Still with a child and grandfather. In fact, it happens through dreams. The child goes to visit grandfather for the midwinter vacation, and begins to have these dreams of a place which the child has never heard of. In fact, it turns out to be the Antarctic continent, and the child is visited by different animals. So there's an albatross, there's a blue whale, the giant orca, the Adelie penguin, the Weddell seals, and so I've discovered that, you know, rather than kind of leaving my love of illustration, it's actually become part of my healing practice, and I want to write for kids. You can imagine with my work for horses that the horse's tail is definitely on the agenda.
Yeah.
There is a horse's tail. It's I think it may happen next year. But there's a lot of, you know, there are a lot of lovely things coming through, powerful things coming through for me in my work with the horses, and so there will definitely be a book to honor them for children. So, you know, it's just a part of my activity, but it's you know, it's bringing in, using different talents. It's all about healing, and you know, the children, I believe, need stories. I think we all need stories about healing at this time.
Yeah.
So I hope some of you might be inspired to look at Voyage of Dreams. It's just come out, and it's available. Both books are available as ebooks. There's a PDF book with good quality illustrations.
Yeah.
You know,
I pulled them up
so
there.
if you,
Pulled them up there while you were talking. I don't know if you could see that, but
yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. But yeah, so, you know, that's one of my activities. I'm going to keep doing that. I got 2 things coming out next year, and just keep building on that, along with my healing work.
Well, that's pretty interesting. And I think that just goes to show the greater, you know, kind of distance that can be covered when it comes to, or that you go when it comes to the healing work that goes into working with the horses that you're working with. And I think just for us as a take home, when I say us, as in the people who are at home with our pets and animals. Right now, we just have our little cat and a bunny. We don't have a horse in our life yet, and or a dog anymore, unfortunately. But that's coming. And I just think that the take home for me, really, from our chat here today, was about just really paying attention and looking at how you can apply the kinesiology and muscle testing into looking at applying this to our pets and animals. Because the thing is that a lot of vet visits and or doctor visits for humans, it's because people aren't really sure what's going on, so they're asking a second opinion. But when you become more tuned in and tapped in, so to speak, then you can feel more empowered to kind of know what's going on, and then being able to ask the right questions, and then you're a lot more empowered than just being in that state of like, well, I just don't know. You don't know, and you're relying on outside information to give direction. And
I think, I mean, the Chinese medicine, traditional medicine, is so amazing.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm sure that if I, you know, in a second life, I would have been attracted to that straight away.
Yeah.
But it's been so cool to discover that, you know, having you know, done qigong, having studied qigong with, you know, amazing practitioners, and then to work with kinesiology, has just been a real voyage of discovery. And of course, I now understand so much why their medicine, you know, why they have, you know, these, you know, this, what they're doing, you know, and they're stimulating these guys, you know, it's like, it's, you know, they're just looking after themselves.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's cool.
You know, it's beautiful. It's really beautiful. So, you know, and it's lovely that it's so, you know, coherent with kinesiology. So.
Yeah. And agreed, 100%. It reminds me, again, I'll use another quote, an ounce of prevention is worth more than a pound of cure. And I think that that goes from the work that you do, from Tai Chi, Qigong, or other types of, like you said, Chinese medicine, to reading a story like that, which I'm interested in. You sent me a copy of it, which I'm grateful for, and we'll read it with my girls, because I have 3 little girls, so they'll really enjoy it. And I like telling stories. But sometimes read the books that I have with the girls, I'm just kind of like, this book, I'm like, they're good, but sometimes they're not. So look forward to reading it. And I put your websites up there, and so those who check out Peter's book, which by the way, it's pretty. I didn't know what it was, but it's $8.50 if you PayPal, but that's pounds. So that's
fine.
That's like 250 Canadian or something, isn't it? Just kidding.
I don't know. I'm told the time is sliding at the moment, but I won't go there.
Yeah, well, it's not very much at all. But yeah, if you guys feel inspired to go and do that, please go and check out his website and get the book. Get it for your grandkids, your kids, if you just have other kids in your life that aren't yours, but just give them a nice little gift like that, because I think it's great, you know. And then also, if you want to reach out to Peter, then you can on his website
please do mail me, and I'd be delighted to be able to discuss issues and the way in which we can approach things and things that we can do. There's a lot that we can do ourselves very, very simply.
Yeah.
So
that's great. Well, thank you, sir. Appreciate your time. And
thank you very much indeed for inviting me again. It's great chatting to you, Barney.
You're welcome. Well, thank you, Peter.
I'm just looking forward to getting over to Canada. I haven't been. I did drive once over the Rockies. The godfather of my daughter is from Toronto.
Oh, cool.
And I spent a very nice time in Toronto, and then we flew to Calgary, and then we rented a car and we drove over the Rockies. I just, BC, and I just love it. So I'm really looking forward to being able to come back to Canada. That is just such an awesome thing for me. I've always wanted to, and this will be such a lovely occasion. So I'm really looking forward to it. That's
awesome. I of course am going to sound biased saying this, but I believe it's considered to be God's country over there. It is pretty amazing. When I go out west, I just sometimes think, I'm like, this is Canada, like this is part of our country. It's just so amazing. So we look forward to you coming, and those of you who want to attend, just watch out for the email that's coming out. It'll be titled something with AWS Live, and what we're doing is we're just getting a feel for how many people we should plan for, because we don't know if 500 people are going to come or just 100 people, and either way, it doesn't matter. Whether it's 50 people, we're still going to do the event, and we're going to start, and we're just at the forefront of continually building this great little community of having amazing, like-minded but varied and diverse type people like you, Peter, and all the rest of our presenters to share, and then all of you guys as members and attendees to tune in and hear what we have, or what the presenters have to say, and sometimes what I have to say. But yeah, we look forward to you coming to Canada, and that's great, because where the event's going to be, it's actually only about 90 minutes from Toronto. Okay. So it's very close for you. Yeah. Awesome. Well, we're going to sign off, and have a great day. And thank you. You're welcome. And as I say in closing, stay blessed, stay grateful, stay humble, and stay hungry. We'll talk to you guys later.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.